Welcome along to another episode of SPL Express after a weekend that saw some stunning goals being scored in the Singapore Premier League, and that sets us up nicely for match week 7. Alongside me, Rhysh, Roshan, as always, to cast his expert gaze over what's to come. But before that, let's refresh your memories of what happened last weekend. 20 goals scored across 4 matches, and it started with that 7-goal thriller at OTH on Friday. Tampines Rovers edging the Sailors 4-3 in a top-of-the-table clash. Brunei DPMM picked up just their second win of the season with victory over Hougang. Saturday saw Albrechts run riot against Geylang, winning that one 6-1, while 10-man Tanjong Pagar beat 10-man Young Lions 2-1 at Jurong East. So a look at the standings, no change at the top as Tampines continue to lead the way, but Albrechts climbed to second ahead of the Sailors thanks to a better goal difference. DPMM also making a move in the right direction. They're up to 5th, level on points with Tanjong Pagar and Balestier. And here's a look at what's coming up this week. Balestier returned to action after receiving a bye in the last round. They're up against Albrechts Negata, that's on Wednesday. And Balestier will play their second game in 3 days. They're away at Young Lions on Saturday. So let's start with that first game on Wednesday. Balestier Khalsa up against Albrechts Negata. Balestier back in action after a lengthy break due to the international break and that bye last weekend. They face a very stern test in the form of Albrechts, Roshan.
Yes, they do. It's going to be a tough challenge for them. The only thing you could say, or one of the things you could say that's going their way is the fact that they would have had time to sort of prepare. They would have fresh legs going into this one. But it is going to be a huge challenge for this Balestier Khalsa side, who have really struggled defensively this season. Peter De Roo has spoken about it constantly. He's spoken about the fact that the players need to be aware when they are out on the pitch of fundamental issues that they have, things like not closing down players, allowing crosses to come in, not tracking runners, making mistakes, making errors at the back. And there's only so much that, I guess a professional coach can do. He can highlight this to you and he can keep reminding you of it. But the players, once they are on the pitch, then they have to sort of deliver and they have to maintain their focus throughout these matches.
But are they making mistakes collectively as a unit, or is it down to individual errors?
It's a combination of the two. There are individual mistakes happening in that back line, certain decision-making situations which cause problems for them in defense. And then as a team at times, the spaces, the gaps between the lines are a little bit too far, they're too wide apart. So it's a combination of the two things that you're asking me. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a game where they are really going to be stretched. They are really going to be tested. The positive thing for Balestier is that they do have a decent attack. Taniguchi is in there. He's in good form. He's scoring goals. He's creating chances. But if they don't get support around him quick enough, then there is a danger that opposition sides could overshadow him and keep him out of the game. So the other players have got to try and step up. Daniel Goh is another one who's been playing some good football for them. And I think they'd like to see Hoshino as well starting to get back on the goal trail.
Now, you're talking about attacks. Albrechts have one of the best attacks in the league. And they showed it against Geylang with that 6-1 win. Goals coming from all over the park.
I think they were really frustrated having gone into the international break off the back of a 1-0 defeat to Tampines Rovers. And that was the first time in something like 37 matches, more than a year, where they would score at least a goal. They had a scoring run of 37 games. They were frustrated against Tampines Rovers. And then it's not nice as a player, I think, once you lose a game, you want to sort of get back and go towards the next game and look ahead to that. But when the international break is there, you kind of don't really have that opportunity. So there can be a little bit of pent-up frustration. The fact that you don't have the ability to get out there and set things straight again. But look, they came back and they looked very good. Geylang were poor. Geylang were really not themselves, but Albrechts Negata, they can only play what's in front of them, and they took Geylang apart. They're looking really confident, and I think Yoshinaga kind of sort of hinted that the players were frustrated that they didn't score against Tampines, and essentially took all their frustrations out on Geylang.
Who from Albrechts stood out for you in that match?
Listen, this Albrechts Negata side are so good as a team, and I think as the season goes on, they just get better. But a player who has really caught my eye over the last few weeks or so is Seiya Kunori, and he's scoring goals, he's creating opportunities for them. When you think back to the start of the season and the earlier matches in their campaign, Kunori was playing up front for them. But now with Tadanari Lee in the side, he plays up front, he's that focal point in attack for Albrechts Negata, and Kunori can then drop off a little bit deeper, can play behind him. We've seen him drop deeper into central midfield as well, try and link the play. So he has become a very important player for Albrechts Negata in terms of all those things that I talked about: positioning, creating opportunities, and then getting on the end of chances in the penalty area as well.
Well, let's shift our attention to the game Hougang versus Tanjong Pagar. Hougang have had a very poor start to their season. In fact, it's one of their worst starts the last 6 years, I would say, 5, 6 years, since 2018, I believe.
Yep.
What's gone wrong with the Cheetahs this season?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is kind of this. I feel like we're gone in a time machine or stepping back to last season as well, where they had a poor start. And we were asking the same sorts of questions. You know, what have they done in pre-season that's sort of caused this slow start? The results are not coming for them. They won their first match, but they weren't able to sort of really kick on from that. And they are not scoring goals, just the 5 goals this season, which is something strange to say about Hougang, because we know them as a side who are good going forward, but have weaknesses in the back line. Now they've got weaknesses across the pitch, all over the park. They've got problems. Can't score goals, can't keep them out as well. And the confidence just seems to really have gone out of this Hougang United side. When you look at the starting 11, when you look at some of the options they have on the bench, it's players who have international experience, it's quality players, and we've spoken about this last week on the show as well. We talked about how they should be doing a lot better than they are based on the names on paper. You think back to their last game against DPMM, they actually had really good chances, clear-cut chances, high-quality opportunities to score. The finishing touch was lacking, and when you can't take your chances in those games, then things can start to go against you. DPMM certainly took theirs with the goals that they scored.
That's the thing. Last season we spoke a lot about Hougang's defense and how they're conceding. Now we're talking about the fact that they can't score. They lost Shawal, they lost Petro Bortoluzo as well.
Yeah.
Is that a result of this now, of those moves out?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Bortoluzo had a bit of a slow start, but he started scoring goals, and he ended off the season quite well with them. Shawal is a big loss, obviously a big loss, but I mean, I guess when the Line City Sailors come calling, it's a difficult move to sort of turn down. And yes, I don't know if they have recruited properly up front. I think Ferreira has been very disappointing. Yep. They are missing Krychek. He's a huge miss. But again, it can't be just that, because Krychek's out. It falls away so badly. Listen, I think this is a game for them and a real opportunity to try and turn things around, or at least get some confidence back, because there's really no confidence at the moment. The players seem to be shouting and cursing at each other. It's going to be fascinating to see whether for Hougang, it's a case of everyone wanting to take on that responsibility and say, we are all at fault, let's all do better, or whether they're going to be pointing fingers and it's not my fault. Because if that's the case, it's going to be a poor season for them.
Well, let's talk about their opponents, Tanjong Pagar. Tanjong Pagar, we know that they have good team spirit in the squad. They showed it last season. This season, they've not had a great start to the season.
Yeah.
They come into this one having beaten the Young Lions. What do you make of their performances so far, and especially of their foreign players?
Their performances, I think, have been not the best, Tanjong Pagar. The foreign players, Pedro Diaz, he's only had like 32 minutes of action so far. It's a little bit difficult to judge. He hasn't quite been able to make the impact that he would have liked, out through injury. So he's not been able to have any input with this side. And then Mudrazija up front, he's also struggling, hasn't scored any goals this season. Last year they were carried along a lot by Ryo Nishiguchi, and they struggled to replace a player like that. And so you wonder where the goals are really going to be coming from. And I mean, the consistency and that constant supply of goals. It's all well and good having that family environment at the club. That's great. And I know, someone like Rishuto has spoken about it previously. Blake Rishuto has said that everyone's close, everyone's tight. And that can help when you're going through a sticky run of results. But also the quality is lacking overall in the squad in the key areas, in situations where you need someone up front to change a game for you. That is missing for Tanjong Pagar United, and that's a big problem at the moment. Defensively as well, they are a little bit loose.
Let's move on to our final game of the week. It's Young Lions up against Balestier. Young Lions come into this one off the back of that defeat, as we mentioned, against Tanjong Pagar. But one of the big blows is the fact that Jacob Mahler received his second yellow and was sent off. How big a blow is it for Young Lions, and especially for Jacob as well, personally, to have come back from injury and get the red card?
I think it's a blow for Jacob Mahler. Obviously very frustrating, very disappointing when you spent that long out of the game and then you come back and you get sent off. I think it was harsh. I don't think it was a second yellow card. In fact, when you actually look at that incident, from my perspective, my view of it was that Rishuto actually kind of jumped into Jacob Mahler and initiated the contact. So I feel a little bit sorry for Jacob Mahler. The referee was, in his view, he thought it was a foul, and obviously VAR can't get involved in those situations. So that's the way it was for him. Yeah, I mean, again, for young Lions, it's always a challenge, isn't it, to try and really put together a consistent run of results or consistent performances at least for them. And this is a blow. Just when you thought that Jacob Marler could be coming back in and have a nice run in the team and perhaps give them a bit more quality in the side, this happens. It's just something they've just got to overcome.
And we talk about Balestier as well. They're playing 2 games in 3 days.
Yeah.
So do they have the squad to actually cope with this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of manage the loads of the players over the next few days or so over the week. Against Albrechts, it's going to be tough. It's going to be physical. It's going to be a game where they need to do a lot of running and not a lot of closing down. And then against the Young Lions, they have played already this season. And in that first meeting between the two sides, Balestier Khalsa looked very comfortable. Very comfortable. 3-1 victory. Young Lions scoring late on in that. And I expect Balestier again to come into this one if they're not too fatigued, if they're not too tired, to again go into this as the favourites. I feel like they should have more quality than the Young Lions, but the Young Lions could be raring to go as well and wanting to make up for the fact they lost last time out. They'll be fresher than Balestier Khalsa, and I think for them it's important to set the tempo and play at a high intensity from early on.
So 3 very interesting games coming up this week. The feature game of the week is Hougang versus Tanjong Pagar. That's on Thursday. Our coverage begins from the Jalan Besar Stadium at 8 p.m. So there's lots of football coming your way. Don't forget those 3 matches this week, plus 4 matches to be played on Monday and Tuesday as well. Next week's episode of SPL Express will dissect those games and look ahead to next weekend's action as well. You can catch all the action live on our YouTube page. Till next time, goodbye.